Good Sunday morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John Becker. We're going to get straight to the topic du jour this morning, and that is what to do about homelessness in our community. It's a question that a lot of people are tackling right now, including a new group that's called the Continuum of Care Board, and there are members of that group on with us and experts this morning. We're so glad that they're with us. I'm going to introduce them and then get to our panel. The first is to my left, and that is Erin Reed. She runs the Knoxville and Knox County Office of Housing Stability. Great to have you. Next to her is the president and CEO of the McNabb Center. That's Mona Blanton-Kitts. And next to her is Jasper McEwen, a case manager with CAC. That's the Community Action Committee. It's nice to have all three of you with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to introduce our panel. There on the end there is Ramsey Cohen. He's a Democrat in the marketing world. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure to be here, John.
Eddie Smith is a Republican and former state lawmaker. Nice to have you as well.
Thank you, John. Good morning, and happy birthday, Susan.
Yes, Susan Richardson Williams celebrating a good one. And John North, my colleague here at WBIR.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's start with the stereotype that many people in our community have when it comes to homelessness and what they think of. We want to show you some video that we took on Wednesday afternoon of Broadway. And this is the area right down by Knox Area Rescue Ministries. This is just one of our photographers driving by, and you see the folks gathered under the bridge there. That is the image that many people have of homelessness in our community. Jasper, let's begin with you. Why is that stereotype not true about what the representative homelessness means in our community?
I think simply put, the people that have the highest needs tend to congregate in that area under the bridge. However, the people that are experiencing homelessness in this community may not even register as homeless. They're driving their children to school every single day, they're clocking into work and they're clocking out, and they're sleeping in the parking lot behind a Walmart before they head out to do the same the next day. And that really is a demographic that we have to look more at as the housing crisis continues to rise and working class families don't have access to the same commodities that they would have had in the past.
And it's our understanding, Erin, from your expertise last time that we spoke, is that a lot of people enter into homelessness simply because they can't make that rent payment. That's their first entree into this. It's not that they have mental health issues or a drug abuse problem. It's different than that.
Correct. So we have about 250 people entering homelessness for the first time in our community every month. And of those, 2/3 are becoming homeless for economic reasons, most often because they can't find affordable housing or they got evicted. So you're exactly right.
Let's set the scene for this new Continuum of Care Board. These are two members on it. Explain in the big picture what you hope this board can do.
So this is the first time in our community that we have brought together leaders from a variety of sectors to fulfill this federal mandate that has existed for multiple decades to have a board that makes decisions about homeless services in the community. We have partnered with the Knoxville Knox County Homeless Coalition, who had been serving as the board before this, to create this new body. They are represented on that body. And it's really the first time that we've had this very comprehensive effort to bring together different sectors, people who command influence and resources to make substantive decisions about how we're dealing with homelessness in this community.
Mona, your expertise, behavioral health, that's what McNabb Center does and has for years. Explain what you hope to offer this board and the broader community.
Well, I think that, like Erin said, the board itself is bringing leaders and experts in to bring our expertise in the areas where we have experience for many, many years. So specifically for me, and being from the McNabb Center, it really is about the mental health and substance use issues that our community faces, and specifically our individuals who are experiencing homelessness. So really looking at it through that lens and really being able to target those very specific chronic issues and realizing we've got to treat that a little bit differently.
And Jasper, your perspective, and then we'll get to questions. You know what it's like to be homeless. You've lived on the streets. Explain what you hope to offer this board and the broader picture of our community.
I think on an academic level, we have a lot of buzzwords to describe the care that we give the people that we want to provide for. But at the end of the day, it's a human being sitting across from you at the desk. And a lot of times when you're being treated systemically in a way that is altogether well-meaning, it can kind of override the real needs that you have in that moment. So more than anything, I'd really like to see a system that is dignified and that is led by choice, so that we understand that there is no one-size approach to fit everybody that is living on the streets or in their car.
Eddie?
Well, and I was going to say, and Jesper, you hit the word that I was going to use, because I've worked with Aaron for years and Mona on several things. And the one thing that I know from this continuum is you all are really amplifying the word for these individuals of dignity, treating them with dignity, whether they're chronic homeless or whether they're just looking for a job. How can we help them take a step up? So really kind of talk about the efforts that you all are doing around helping individuals with that dignity.
Well, I can tell you that you'll see it in the strategic plan that is up on our website, that we are trying to increase services available for people and also increase the diversity and usability of those services, so that people who are homeless understand that there is a service out there for them somewhere that they can use in this community. The Office of Housing Stability, as part of this new effort, we're going to be funding expanded outreach and expanded services under the overpass on North Broadway, exactly the place where you all took footage on Wednesday afternoon. We're going to be funding expanded services there because we do have, just as Jasper said, a very high acuity population that gathers under that overpass. And even though they are right there in the vicinity of some of our largest homeless services providers, surveys that we've done with folks under the bridge show that they're not accessing services in the way that we would think that they would. So that's one thing that we're trying to do.
We're going to get to more questions. John, Ramsey, Eddie, we'll get to those just after a short break. And also, how do you know how many people are experiencing homelessness in our community? We'll show you one resource you can go to right now while you're watching this program, right after this. We're back on Inside Tennessee on this Sunday morning, and as promised, we are showing you a website that you can go to and see how many people right now are experiencing homelessness in our community. If you just Google Knox, HMIS, it will take you to a link and you'll see for yourself the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows as we tackle this problem. John North?
John, thank you. As part of what you all are doing with the Continuum of Care, this strategic plan which you all have put together is really fascinating. I would encourage people to go look at it. You can view it via the website. And there's a lot in there. It covers about 3 years, as the goal describes, reducing unsheltered homelessness by 15%, I think, over 3 years. Some focusing on more on philanthropies and such. Could you talk about some of the highlights from how you see them, Mona?
The highlights from the
plan?
Yeah,
because there's a lot here.
There is a lot there, and I think first and foremost, what I would want our viewers to hear and for our community to hear is that our goal is to prevent and end homelessness, and by doing that in different strategic manners. And the first is creating the board, and like we talked about earlier, pulling experts together. The second is exactly what you said: over a 3-year period, reducing 15% of unsheltered homelessness. And what that really means are people who are experiencing homelessness who don't really use the shelters. So it's who a lot of our viewers will see when they are driving down Broadway or they're downtown. And so being able to reduce that segment, I think, will make a big difference.
Yeah, so I'm curious, you talked a bit about the working homeless, right? People who are sleeping in their car qualify as homeless. It seems like there's so many macroeconomic things at play there that we can't really control, right? The wages have not gone up, and it makes it harder to keep rent payments going. And the number you showed, 200-something individuals going homeless each month in our community, is shocking and depressing to hear. I'm wondering, given that there's so many things beyond our control, with that, what are you guys doing to address those particular areas? Could you speak to the strategic plan, how it's helping with that?
Sure. So what you'll see in the strategic plan is that we want to explore housing navigation efforts that other communities have made. A lot of other communities have recognized this exact problem that you're talking about, which is we have a whole lot of people who are working but who suddenly, in the past 5 to 7 years, can't afford rent in our community anymore. And we do, of course, already have some programs in place to help people afford rent. KCDC is doing a whole lot with getting affordable housing on the ground, making sure that people can access it. But if you are on the waiting list at KCDC, it's a very, very long waiting list. And that is because we have more demand than we have supply. A lot of other communities have had success with housing navigation, which is matching folks with low income with apartment units or houses that they can sustain. And so you'll see in the strategic plan we're looking potentially to pilot something along those lines.
Jasper, could you speak to the repetitive services that some people say, hey, is the Salvation Army overlapping with what's happening at CARM, with what's happening at Volunteer Ministry Center? There is a system in place to prevent that from happening. Can you explain that?
So we don't want to duplicate services, obviously, because that would mean that we're putting funding and energy and manpower behind plans that might already be happening elsewhere in our community, which is why groups like the COC Board or the Continuum of Care and the Homeless Coalition are so important. Not only is this a networking quote-unquote group, but allows us to come together and put a piece per group down to form an actual plan on how to handle people. So we have people from the healthcare system here. We have those who might be landlords or develop low-income housing. We might have those who are in the mental health field, like Mona, or we might have those who genuinely work with homelessness services. Because at the end of the day, homelessness isn't just about lacking a roof over your head. It's about the things that you can't sustain, causing you to lose it. I've actually never met a homeless person, including myself, who has become homeless simply because they can't afford rent. It's food instability. It's a medical bill that knocked them off their feet. It's a car wreck that caused them to lose their transportation to get back and forth from work day in, day out. So when we have these many partners at play communicating together like they are now, not only are we not duplicating services, but we're feeding into each other to develop them and make them even stronger for our community.
So thinking through, you all mentioned that you've got services. Let's talk for a second about what we'll call the working homeless, those that are sleeping in their car. Most people think of, most services are between 8 and 5, but that's when most people would be working. So what are the things you all are doing kind of in that unusual hours to make services available for that segment of the population, and how can they find those?
So we're really leaning on homeless service providers to make sure that those services are available. We have many providers that are open on the weekends. We have at least 2 drop-in centers that are open on the weekend where people can do laundry, where people can receive mail, where they can do the things that we sort of take for granted if we have a home. And one of the things that we are trying to do is get a better idea of how many people do we have living in their cars, working, taking their kids to school. It's a population we don't actually have a lot of good data on.
Yeah, so I'm curious, you talked a little bit about how the supply of housing, and I work for a home builder, so I'm always going to look at things through that lens, about how the supply of housing is not meeting up with the demand of that. Can you speak to a little bit about how you guys are integrating developers, builders, or folks who can help increase that supply, or things you may be doing to help address the housing supply? Because at the end of the day, supply and demand is one of the major factors of why a car wreck or a medical bill causes someone not to be able to pay rent. So what are you guys doing to help increase supply?
You're absolutely right. Supply and demand, those are the big levers. So the purview of the Continuum of Care Board is really homelessness and homeless services. However, because housing is one of the only ways that we're going to get out of this issue as a community.
Homelessness is a housing problem, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you. I didn't even have to say it this time. We have the Chief Policy Officer for the city on the COC Board. We have the head of Knox County Grants and Community Development on the COC Board. And those are individuals in local government who are really central to these conversations with developers and neighborhoods and nonprofit funders for, how are we making sure that we're putting housing in appropriate areas where people who can live there can sustain that housing. And so the short answer is, while housing is not the purview of the COC Board, we definitely understand how important it is, and we have brought partners into the COC Board who are actively doing that work.
Yeah.
We've got to take a quick break on Inside Tennessee. Back with the final part of our conversation right here in minutes. We're back on Inside Tennessee, talking about a vexing problem, not just for our community, but across the country, and that is, what about homelessness? How can we help solve this really chronic problem, John?
Before I ask my question, it's a good time to remind people that there's a major fundraiser for Helen Ross McNabb that starts tomorrow, Monday, correct? That's the Knoxville Challenger?
That is correct.
Good chance to take advantage of that. But I wanted to ask this question, Aaron, of you, and that is, I think some folks it may be helpful to them to understand some communities that have had some success with their strategies, or that you all see as maybe examples of what's working. And you mentioned off camera a couple. Could you share those?
Of course. Houston, Texas is sort of the textbook example at this point. They decreased their homeless population by over 60% over the course of 10 years.
Wow.
Very huge. They also don't have any zoning regulations.
That is true.
That helps solve the
build whatever
housing
you
problem.
need.
Yeah,
Yes.
you can build wherever.
And lots of flat, cheap, buildable land. So there are some things that are unique about Houston that that may limit the applicability of their lessons to our community. But Bergen County, New Jersey is another one. Bergen County, New Jersey was one of the first communities in the nation to reach functional zero for chronic homelessness. So chronic homelessness is people who've been homeless longer than a year, who have a disabling condition. As you can imagine, really, really tough population to serve, even tougher population to house. But Bergen County, New Jersey, they were able to hit functional zero in that category. And the way that they did it was by making sure that they had a comprehensive spectrum of services, so that no matter what someone's situation was, there was a service for them. For folks who are chronically homeless, supportive housing tends to be a really useful service for them. But, not all. There are some who just need a job and a place they can afford.
And speaking of permanent supportive housing, Mona, this is a concept that we've talked a lot about in many, many years in this community. It is really expensive. It also involves having an expert, a behavioral expert, living in or at least checking in on people who are living in the supportive housing. Explain the challenges and whether you think that's something we should invest more in.
I definitely think that is one of the answers. Earlier we said, to end and prevent homelessness, housing is the answer. And we also have to have some of those other wraparound services, and permanent supportive housing is one of those. So think of it as wraparound services. We get someone housed and then being able to keep them in housing. So helping them pay rent, making sure that they are attending their doctor's appointments, making sure they are taking their medication, making sure that they are able to get to work if they are working. So all of those things that maybe sometimes we take for granted, we have people who cannot do that without a little bit of support.
Do we have examples of that working right now in our community?
We do. One of the things that many people may not realize, but the McNabb Center has 143 units of housing right here in Knoxville, and 60 of those are supported living housing units. 33 of those are specifically for veterans, and then the other 50 are for low income. So yes, it works. It works, and it's making a difference.
And one of the things whenever I'm speaking in front of groups that I tell everybody is, everybody woke up this morning with three things. You woke up with time, talent, or treasure. Obviously, they can give their treasure through the challenge with Helen Ross McNabb or any of the nonprofits on the COC. But how can our community invest the other two, their time or their talent, in supporting you all in the work of what you're engaged in right now?
Well, one of the best ways that people could really engage is with overnight warming centers. We have currently 5 locations that are going to be opening overnight warming centers. Those are all churches. We're looking at another couple of locations. And we need volunteers. We're going to be launching our volunteer site here within the next few days. You'll be able to find that on our website. But we don't just need volunteers. If that seems a bridge too far, we need people to help deliver supplies. We need people to do all kinds of things to make sure that these warming centers can get off the ground, because our homeless population has more than doubled in the past 7 years, and we simply don't have the shelter space to serve everyone who's going to be seeking shelter when it's dangerously cold this winter.
And
Go ahead. Jasper, I want to give you the last word because you started this out, and I want you to give people, our viewers this morning, a sense of where we go from here and how it should be measured in the next minute.
I think more than anything, the things that we're doing are measurable. When I was homeless at 18, there were dozens of deaths from hypothermia a year. Last year we had 3. And to recognize that and to get to sit there at the top of that and look down at those numbers shrink every single year, encouraging is not the right word for it. I don't know if there is a good enough word for it. If you want to be more involved, there is the point in time count. It's a yearly count done by HUD where we go out, volunteers are trained on how to communicate with our homeless neighbors and communicate with people on the street, so we fill out surveys and we understand their circumstances, and that data can be used to better our community. We've used it a number of times for the grants that we use to fund our services now. And I think even if you don't want to participate in it in any way, understanding how that works and how it informs the decisions we make here is a great way to be an active Knoxvillian when it comes to homelessness.
Jasper, Mona, Aaron, thank you all for your expertise. We look forward to staying in touch and being in touch on how things develop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're back with our final conversation here on Inside Tennessee right after this. Back on Inside Tennessee, we're going to shift to the election. There's one underway in the city of Knoxville. Still a chance to make your voice heard. Only about 1 in every 10 voters who can vote have. Ramsey, make your pitch.
Outside of it being people's civic responsibility and duty to go vote, I think it's really important to go out and vote because we have a potential tax increase on there. One of the things that tax increase, which I'm supportive of, is going to be going to support affordable housing. Many of the things that they talked about needing today. It's incredibly important that we get out and vote because what happens here locally is going to dictate and impact our day-to-day lives far more than anything on the federal stage.
Eddie, you sit on the election commission.
As Ramsey said, it's your civic duty, but I want to go one step farther. Decisions are made by those who show up. If you don't show up from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday for Election Day, then you didn't show up for the community. So show up, vote, let your voice be heard. There's 2 things to vote for, your candidate or the tax referendum. Those are the only 2 things. It's the shortest ballot you will ever get in Knox County.
It's painless.
In and out, no time at all.
It's painless.
The other thing that I want to talk about with this election, Eddie, is what you've seen so far in terms of turnout. You said it was on par with a mayoral race that we've seen in the past.
It is. At the halfway point, what we got from Chris Davis is it's tracking on par. That's still apoplectically bad when you think about it. I mean, 90,000 voters in Knox County, 4,400 had voted. So at the halfway point. So we've got a long road to go. And again, we have 12 days of early voting. That's super convenient. You can go anywhere. Then on Election Day, polls are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. By federal law, you can actually leave work if need be to go vote. So there's absolutely no reason for people not to go vote who live in the city of Knoxville.
John, we've heard from every candidate and we've heard from both the pro and con on the sales tax.
Yeah, whatever your position is, you should have great motivation to take part in this election. If you haven't already early voted, Tuesday is a great opportunity. We have so many unique neighborhoods in this city. Your council member is going to be chosen.
John, Eddie, Ramsey, we appreciate the pitch and we'll hope you deliver. Please tell your neighbors it's time to cast that ballot. And we will see you next week right here on Inside Tennessee. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday morning.